Yeah, so this combines two things. A, there was just some mob. It was some frost giant or something, or some frost creature, semi-rare spawn, not ridiculously rare. But if you killed him, the first time you killed him, they had a term for it. It was called like first time kill or something like that. The very first time you killed him, he would drop this awesome two-handed hammer, the Hammer of Black Ice. Well, a perfect example of that, I couldn't get the guy to spawn. I was having really bad luck. My main character at the time was a Thane. My eventual main character was a warrior. But that was a great weapon at the time for a Thane. And this other guy that we RVR'd with played a healer. And he had the Hammer of Black Ice. But he didn't really need it as a healer, so he's just like, hey, tell you what, why don't you just take it and you use it until you can finally get around to making that guy spawn and get your own. Well, a whole bunch of things just happened in that interaction. There was clearly like a relationship and a reputation. Like this guy was like, you know what, I RVR with this guy. He's a good guy in our realm. He's like does a lot of RVR. It's important to Midgar that this guy has a good weapon. You know what I mean? Like, I'm a healer. I don't really need mine. I'll let him use it. And then also there's a trust factor. You know what I mean? Like, would you give a really awesome weapon to some random and wow, you might never see him again. You know, there was all these mechanics going on there. And the fact that since it didn't bind, it was actually possible for him to give it to me. So, you know, then within a few days, I was finally able to get the guy to drop. I found him and got my own and gave it back to him. But like, think about that. I remember that to this day, the Hammer of Black Ice and how this healer gave me his. Like, so kick-ass stuff like that can only happen if you don't bind and, you know, if you don't tie gear to like some insane raid.
Yeah, it's funny that you say that because you remember before the Black Ice Hammer, the Dragon Hammer?
Yeah,
the one that the dragon dropped? Yep, a healer buddy of mine from Sweden, he was the one who gave it to me. And they was like, man, you gotta have it. You're like the best Skald. You gotta have it. You gotta have it. So yeah, it's funny. Yeah, the whole interaction of community and, you know, just the socialism of how things worked back then and how they work now. It's just, I think the games nowadays promote almost a cancerous chat or community where people don't care because they're like, you know what, I don't care. I can just bot it up and I'll make the damn item myself because I can do it. Whereas it's not going to be the same. You know, I'm digging it, man. I'm definitely digging it.
Yeah, there's nowadays there's like no consequences to being a jerk. You know what I mean? Like, you know, that no one will really know who you are, and even if they did, what are they going to do about it? And it kind of gets worse as raids have little. Even though I think it's better than just grinding a boss for a drop, the tokens, like, I think that's an improvement. But in a way, it kills socialism even more because it's like, you know what? So what? I'm a jerk, but I still get my 2 frost tokens from killing this boss, just like you do. And eventually, I'll get my 12, and then I'll get my weapon, no matter what you say. It's like I said, it's just they've commoditized and added convenience to the point that they've really ripped the soul out of all these games, and that's definitely something we're trying to fight to whatever extent we can.
Yeah, because I remember one last thing that I remember is that I remember a real big event. We all went to, I can't remember Frontier it was. All 3 realms went. And you wouldn't see this in a game today. We literally, all 3 realms ended up crashing the server on Merlin. We ended up all going, a real good friend of the community. Everybody knew him. It was a guy from Albion. He played a, crap, I can't think. It was either a paladin or the other one. I can't think of it right now.
Was it Arms Master?
Yeah, it was either the Armsman or the paladin. I want to say paladin, but he was super nice guy. He helped everybody. You know, he would answer questions on the forums. He ended up passing away. Everybody ended up, you know, doing a memorial for him and going into like the Frontier and doing a memorial for him. And you know, it ended up being like, man, I can't tell you. I mean, I think that game maxed out 3,000 on a server. I mean, literally everybody in the same spot. You know, of course, we melted the server, but I think we ended up with maybe 1 or 2 people that acted like idiots. Of course, they died immediately, and it didn't end up in a big war and everybody killing each other. You just wouldn't see that in the game today. You wouldn't see it. I mean, they would come together. It'd be an immediate fight, and then it'd be all over.
There's no community. I just want to touch on something regarding all of these examples. They have one very noticeable thing in common. They are player-driven quests.
Yep.
Absolutely, yep.
It's not, oh, the game tells me to do this, or, oh, it's part of a dungeon, or it's a prerequisite to do something else. It's I really want this weapon, and I need a friend to help me get it. So I'm going to be nice. Community interaction, similar with Frog Dice's Black Hammer, Ice Hammer, and very much with beloved member of the community. Let's all player-made quest essentially hold a funeral service.
Yeah, it's literally what it was.
Stash so far, I mean, from everything we've spoken about, from the intents and hopes of the developers and even the fans and community currently looking at Stash, sounds like it's going to focus on that type of thing and have that type of thing. It also sounds like what tasks or quests in the game will not choke the ability for players to do this to the point that nobody tries. And that's a problem with a lot of modern MMOs, is that the amount of dungeons and quests and prerequisite tasks choke the ability for players to have their own purpose.
Yeah, I think that's a killer point that you just made, is that the people, it's like games are over-engineered to the point that they've created too many things that, like you said, they choke the ability for the players, you know, whether it's bind on pickup chokes the ability for players to help each other out, you know what I mean? Like Dungeon Finder chokes the ability of people to like build their own reputation, you know, stuff like that. These features that were created with a good intention end up just killing the social interaction, and I think that's sad. And some of it too, I just talking to other game developers, a lot of times there is a certain level of hubris where the developers think, oh no, all fun derives from me. I made the game, therefore any fun that's going to be had comes from me. You know, and they think it has to come directly from them. They aren't happy enough with like, well, it did come from you because you made the world and the game. Now why don't you take a step back and let the players create fun for each other? And even if player A thinks, well, your game isn't what made me have fun, it's player B that made me have fun, just let them think that. It's not the end of the world. Like, take pride in yourself that you made the world that made that happen, which is enough, and it should be enough. Don't worry that they have to think, no, the fun all came directly because I wrote this dungeon and it had a cool boss, and you know what I mean? So I think that people people sometimes will get mad at Threshold and they'll rage quit, and then they'll send an angry letter and they'll say, your game sucks. The only reason I played for 6 years is because the people are awesome. And if I reply at all, I'm just like, you know, I'm sorry you're quitting or you're mad about this or that. But, you know, the game attracts the player, and those are the people that you had fun with. And so I take that as a compliment. You know, thanks.
Yeah, I mean, the game is the community. That is the whole point of the game, is to build the community. And if that's what you remember, then great, you succeeded. But in my opinion, you succeeded. So, yeah. And got me wanting to play.
I'm sorry, but I'm still stuck on the hate mail concept of I only played for 6 years.
Oh yeah,
Thank you for playing for 6 years.
You wouldn't believe. I mean, here we had a small version of that on Steam. Somebody wrote a negative review about Rainmaker, and according to Steam stats, they had 65 hours played. I'm like, and they said they'd beaten the game, so I was like, they didn't just leave it AFK for 65 hours to beat the game. Yeah, that's 20 plus. So, yeah. So, I'm just like, whatever. But yeah, on Threshold, we've had worse than that. We've had people play 10 years and rage quit over something, or something happened, or we made some decision or something. And yeah, rage quit and get all mad. Of course, usually a couple years later, they come rolling back, and a lot of times apologizing, or they're all embarrassed. And I'm like, look, you don't have to be embarrassed. You were mad. You know, I mean, for me, that's just passion about the game, you know, like, you know, when people who really quit are the ones that just kind of limp off and fade away, you know, like the ones that quit in a rage, they almost always come back because they're still passionate about the game.
totally agree with you.
I had a couple. Well, at least definitely one more. Is the game going to have like a sub type, or like a purchase and then a sub, or is it going to be free to play and microtransactions, or what kind of or have you even thought about the model yet?
Oh yeah, we think that's core. Like you really have to have that decided because it affects design so much. We actually, we call this game Pay What You Want. You could definitely say it's free to play. We don't. That term though has been totally just violated. In a way, we kind of consider ourselves one of the pioneers of that business model. So if you hate it, sorry. Threshold has been, to our knowledge, might be the oldest free to play game ever. It's been using that model since 1996. But so no subscription. From the very beginning, though, we are going to sell what we call citizenship package, and we're going to sell it on. I was just talking to Humble today about it. It's almost definitely going to be on the Humble store. It should be on Steam also, and it's basically like kind of the close equivalent to paying $20 to buy a box, and it'll come with tons of stuff, like way more than $20 worth of stuff in the game. It will also include $20 worth of, or probably $30 worth actually of medallions. That's the virtual currency. So it'll have like $30 worth of virtual currency and a bunch of different little items, and you'll be flagged a citizen, which will have various just general benefits to your character. To your account. Because we really our goal is to price that at such a value that basically anyone who really loves the game will at least want to buy that. If they buy nothing else, they'll at least want to buy that. Because I think it's unhealthy to have an environment where only 2% of your customers pay and 98% don't. That 98%, they're not as invested in the world as everybody else. They don't have skin in the game. I think that's unhealthy. Now, if it takes them 6 months or a year to get to that point, that's okay. Or if they were just broke at the time and they're like, man, as soon as I can afford it, I'm getting that citizenship package. That's cool too. We've had tons of that on Threshold. People who play in college, or they play after they've had some kind of health disaster and they were broke and they played for a couple years, never spent anything, and then life got better and bam, they started paying. That's totally cool with us too. So we'll have that one package, and then beyond that, yeah, it's basically free to play. And I hate saying that because it's been so abused. But the way we do it, like the way we've done it on Threshold, the way we did it on Coin and Carry, that's our social web game. Anything that gives your character power can also be obtained in game, so there's no imbalance there. But the vast majority of things you can buy are going to be cosmetic items, fun items, or things that basically let you make a little bit of a time for money kind of swap. You know what I mean? Some people have a lot of time, some people have a lot of money, a little bit of balance out, XP boost potions, things like that, or even just pure convenience. Like, for example, if you have a pack animal or a mount, you can load it up with stuff to send back to your boo to unload. Well, that takes time. Once you send it off, it might take 5 or 10 minutes or something like that for your mount to get to your boo and drop it off and come back. But you could also spend, if you wanted it instantaneous, you could spend a couple medallions and it would instantaneously. So convenience, things like that. That's the kind of stuff that'll be microtransactions, or customization, stuff like that. But no pay to win, and definitely no, like, I haven't played Hearthstone, but someone was telling me recently about how, like, you can really only advance like an hour a day's worth of play, and if you want more, you got to pay and all this stuff. And I don't like stuff like that, because, like, what if I can't play it all during the week, but I can play 10 hours a day on the weekend? Well, why should I be screwed because the only way to play is to log in every single day and do your dailies or whatever? So no gating off advancement. Also, no systems that are deliberately frustrating and annoying, but then you can pay your way out of those. Like, really despise that. I think that's bullshit. And then also, no, I see this a lot in free-to-play games where the game will give you some medallions. We'll give you some medallions, like, just kind of, or whatever the currency is, like, oh, every time you gain a level, you get 5, coins or whatever. But then there's all these shitty ways in the game, all these crappy ways in the game to make you accidentally spend your currency. You know what I mean? Like, you know, it's like you leave the town and there's 12 confirmations, but when you